Welcome and thank you for listening to the Civic Space today with Southern Defenders, a podcast that explores the status of the civic and political space in the Southern Africa region by unpacking critical issues that shape the civic space. My name is Mandata Mlodwa and I'm your host for today's show. Today's episode is set against the backdrop of the June 16 Youth Day commemoration in South Africa that recognizes the role of young people in the Soweto uprising in 1976. Across the continent, the day is also observed as the Day of the African Child, which not only commemorates the uprising, but also focuses on children in Africa, celebrating their lives as well as noting the challenges that they regularly face. Today's episode is special to me because it features someone that young people look up to as a great example of youth leadership in action. Zambia's Fumba Chama was late in 2022 sworn in as the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts in Zambia. He joins us today to speak about the intersection of civil society and government, reflecting on his transition from the creative arts and civic space to leadership in government. We'll talk about some of the ways he continues to engage civil society. Mr. Chama, welcome and thank you for being a part of today's conversation.
Thank you very much, Mantanti, and I'm happy to be here. I think we've not talked in a long time. I'm happy to speak to you today.
Thank you so much. So I wanted us to just set the conversation by starting with the question, who is, in your words, Fumba Chama?
That's the most difficult question I struggle to respond to all the time. And I think I am many things. I'm an artist. I'm an activist. I don't know the easier way of responding to this question, but I think I'm many things. I'm an artist plus more. I'm an activist plus more. I'm a citizen of a country called Zambia, but also a continent called Africa, also part of a bigger community, a global community. I struggle to answer to respond to this question. Sorry, man. Sorry.
No, it's actually very helpful because I think all of the ways in which you, in different ways, highlighted the different aspects of you, that's really who you are, because I got to first interact with you as an artist. And like what you're saying, you're a citizen of a country that already carries with it a lot of responsibility, you being a global citizen. So I think the different things you touched on are very important aspects that we're going to talk about today. So my other question really is about your experience as an activist post-election in Zambia. When you took up the strategic and important role of permanent secretary in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts, what was your mindset and how has the experience been so far?
The experience has been exciting and also challenging, I must mention, because from my previous experiences as an activist, my job was to articulate the problem. As permanent secretary, my responsibility is to find a solution to those problems, and it's very exciting. It's challenging. It's feeling when you deliver, and I think to a greater extent, that's where I think governments and civil society organizations should be in a very good relationship all the time, because they seek to deliver to the same constituency. What I used to do as an activist was to share or amplify on what the challenges our people are faced with, and to this day, I do understand the problems. I hear more of the problems. The only thing that has changed on my end is to have lost the power to complain, but attained the power to provide solutions to those problems that I could sing about, those that I could talk about, and those that could be communicated to me. Today, I have the responsibility now to find solutions to those problems. And trust me, being an activist is very important, and being able to articulate problems is very, very important. But also being able to find solutions to those problems is equally very important. And these are two different spaces, but it's a very exciting experience to have lived and worked in both spaces.
Thank you so much. I think that's very interesting because our title today is on just the intersection of government and civil society, and you've been able to give us a bit of a picture of it. And I like that you started off on the other side, especially for us young people. We're always talking about how the government does not understand our problems or experiences. Just being able to have someone that's been on our side, not just experiencing it, but also articulating it, then on the other side where you have the responsibility to deliver. So the other thing I noticed when you were appointed was that creatives and youth across sectors praised your transition as an opportunity for their representation in how the government conceptualizes and programs for youth development, as well as how it integrates youth into broader national development processes. Could you speak on this session?
Thank you very much. And I think there are demonstrable steps that we've taken after my appointment, and I would be able to speak to some of these as we go on in the conversation. Representation is very, very critical, I must mention, because decisions that we make, decisions that are made at community level, decisions that are made at local level, even at national level, to a greater extent, the contributions are made by those that are available, and those that are available at that particular table. There are decisions that can be made on behalf of a certain group of people, but then the passion and the drive to push for that agenda, or that agenda being delegated, may not equal the passion that would have been delivered by the people that are actually affected. I'm one of those that would defend and argue that I'm not anybody's voice. I am my own voice. And what that means is that if we allow people to speak their story, to speak their issues, to fight their battles, it then becomes easier for those that are charged with the responsibility to find solutions, to decide at national level, to decide with an understanding of what the issues are. Representation at this point implies visibility and audibility. As artists in my country, we've not had representation at this level. What this means now is that when we are designing the budget for this country, for me to deliver, for me to say I've worked, I will have to see fruits. I have to see results. How do I get those results? I would need resources. It means that at budgeting level, I will have to actively input on information or on the needs or the aspirations of the creatives in my country, so that when that budget is announced, it reflects the aspirations, the interests, and the needs of the creatives. The failure to do that, the failure to capture the needs of our creatives, would mean the failure by myself to deliver. Now, I don't want to fail to deliver. This is true for so many groups that seek representation. It is being able to participate in these governance processes. It is this ability to influence decision-making in the favor of those that are affected in a particular community or country. So representation is very critical in that there is a direct inputting in decision-making processes in the country.
Your submissions are very interesting because they just affirm what I said earlier, just the excitement and confidence that young people have in your leadership, because I think one of the biggest things that we as young people in the continent, in the region, have been trying to push for when we talk about the need for youth to represent in government is that, you know, we need to be able to see our government understand the fact that young people have these experiences, aspirations, and being able to not just articulate, but also being able to say, how do we work with young people to actually deliver on those? So I think the key word for me from just your submission is around the issue of delivery, which is what public leadership should be about, where people jump into office knowing this is the obligation and this is what I need to do to make sure that I deliver to the constituents that I represent. And I wanted to ask again, because you're coming from the creative arts civic space, and now you're in government. So what has your engagement with civil society looked like post your appointment? And in what ways do you see your role providing a bridge between the two for the benefit of youth positive development?
Thank you very much, Mantante, again. So first of all, I think I must mention that the government's commitment is to see young people engaged in productive activities and productive programs and all of that. But government does not have all these programs initiated by itself or funded by itself. What we've learned, and obviously what we're trying to implement, especially in the creative space, is how do we channel the creativity towards a sustainable development of our country? I'll give an example of what we've been able to do now. And my ministry has initiated partnerships and agreements with civil society organizations that are very strategic on critical issues. One of them is WWF, where we are saying, instead of having creatives that are talking about air and rocks and all of that, can we have creative input towards sustainable development and environmental care and climate change and all of that? So what we've been able to do is, as government, is to initiate this partnership between civil society organizations such as WWF with the creatives in the country. What we'd like to see at the end of the day is that instead of having a creative force that influences society in a negative direction, and when I see negative direction is the promotion of vices that have for a long time damaged our society. Instead of that, what we are pushing, and as an agenda for the government, is to get this creative force calling us to environmental responsibility, where people are aware of what we should be able to be doing as a country in terms of climate change, in terms of environmental care and stuff like that. I have been able to also initiate conversations with human rights defending organizations. You might be aware of an organization called Magamba Network, which I worked with before my appointment, and we continue to work with even after my appointment, to engage creatives in a project they call the Satire School of Satire, where we're engaging creatives to not just sort of bullying people, use that creative power to promote ideals such as human dignity. What is it that you can use your force or your power, your creativity to build a society that is conducive, a society that is productive, a society that is safer for yourself, for the powerful, and for the weaker? So what we are doing as government is to create these connections. It's because we understand that as government, we may not have all the resources, we may not have all the necessary programs or the wisdom, but we do not have an excuse of not doing what we should be doing. Therefore, we identify critical partners, like some of the organizations that I've mentioned here, to push for what we think is necessary for the development of our country. We are not saying that there's not going to be arguments. We're not saying there's not going to be misunderstanding, but what we're saying is that this is not a romantic relationship. Let's be brave enough to argue. Let's be brave enough to speak to each other. Let's be brave enough to decide what is better together. And I think we are doing that. We just started that. There are a lot of other organizations that we've engaged. And we're looking forward to more interactions with civil society organizations, because we believe that they want to deliver to the people. The government wants to deliver to the people. We can only do well if we work together.
Thank you so much. And I think it's also very interesting because I've worked for Magamba before, and one of the things that I got to do while at Magamba was to work with you and Kubatana Network at the time, to actually build the capacity of young people to do digital campaigns. So I'm actually very excited that beyond that time when you're not yet in government, you've continued to engage organizations like Magamba to continue on the work that you're doing. So one of the things I also wanted to mention is around the fact that as a creative, you represent that sector. So in your term of office, even though you represent young people broadly, I think it's very important that that element of you comes out because you represent the creative art space. And I think it's also just indicating just how much we need, that diversity of people that come up and take up space in those positions, because we might have a creator today, tomorrow we have a scientist, tomorrow we have a farmer, and all of those different young people representing different sectors, so that over time we're able to find ways in which we can infuse them. So I was then going to ask you what your advice could be to young people in the creative arts sector and also other sectors who aspire to walk the path that you've taken. How can they best build themselves for such roles, and how can they effectively utilize the opportunity once elected and appointed?
I think my advice would be find a solution. A lot of our young people know the problems, and I think power gravitates towards those that have solutions. You might want to first of all understand the problem, but if you want to take a step further, you start thinking of a problem. We have a society, and we have societies that have so many problems. And you notice that those that get rewarded, those that get noticed, those that get celebrated, those that get acknowledged are those that will have a solution to a problem. It is good to identify a problem, but it is better to also be able to say, this is a solution to this problem. And I say that carefully because as an activist, much of what I used to do and much of what I knew was to remind people of their responsibility or their responsibilities. And I think there are a lot of people like that. There are a lot of us that are that type of activists that will point to the problem and remind others of their responsibilities. I would like to encourage as many young people as possible to take it further. So be able to provide that solution in your space. So then you take leadership even before the position. You take the responsibility to lead even before there's a position of leadership. Because being able to take responsibility is a practical definition of being a leader. To lead is to actually lead and not to occupy a place. So my advice to young people, to activists, is to take responsibility now. Be a leader now. If there is an issue in your society that you feel somebody should act, it's probably an opportunity for you to lead. It's probably an opportunity for you to say, you know what? I'm going to do this for my people. I'm going to do this for myself. You could be dealing with a national issue that still, if you're able to identify that as a problem, if you can articulate it as a problem, it also is an opportunity for you to present yourself for national leadership by saying, instead of waiting for other people to do this, I don't know if they will do anything about it, but I'm going to take the responsibility to act on this and provide the leadership that is necessary and required at this particular time. So my advice is that let's take responsibility and take up the leadership roles that present themselves in form of challenges.
Thank you so much. That's very practical and actually leads me to the last question, because like we already said, it's Youth Month and our listeners include young people, but also those that program for young people. So my question really is, how can they best contribute to and benefit from your role in the Ministry of Youth?
What I've done and I keep doing for young people in this country is to provide a platform. I invite and welcome young people from all over. I must mention that my portfolio is arts, but I invite as many young people as possible. And what I've been able to do is, if young people want to go to the Ministry of Justice, they can still come to me. I can call the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Justice and say, I have a group of young people that would like to come and see you. Please help. They just need to have a chat with you. I've done that before and I keep doing that. There are young people that have come with ideas on climate change and they would like to go to the Ministry of Green Economy. They don't know who to speak to. They walk in this office. I say, okay, don't worry, I'm going to pick a call. Please, can you welcome a group of young people? And not only that, there are also young people in businesses that would like to go to certain corporates and corporate companies for specific requests and opportunities. I've been able to say, okay, I know somebody from there, or if they have somebody there, they just provide a number with me. I take the responsibility and call that particular entity and say, I'm sending my young people there. They would like to have a chat with you. They have a challenge. I've done that before. I'll give you an example. I had a group of 3 young people, two young ladies and 1 gentleman that were running a company. And then I don't know what happened. Somebody stole their money. One of the chaps that they employed stole the money. And then they had a lot of orders and they were almost getting beaten up by their clients. And they reached out. So I didn't have the money. We didn't have the money when they came through, but we linked. I spoke to somebody from my bank. I linked them to that particular bank and they got funded. And what we are saying is that it's easier for young people to walk into this office and in my minister's office and my colleague's office to say, I want this, if we can do it ourselves, we'll do it. If we can't, we'll ask you, what can we do? Or if you want to go to a different ministry, but you don't know where to start from, you can still come into this office and we'll be able to say, okay, I know somebody from there, or I can ask around and see how we can get you there. That's what we're able to do. And we believe that that's very strategic in that we want as many ideas as possible from young people, because we know that today's challenges are better understood by young people because this is their reality, this is their moment, this is their generation. And with respect to other people, they may not have a clear understanding of what the challenges are. And the ideas that young people have now are very useful or could be effective solutions to the challenges that we have now. So if we miss the opportunity to utilize those ideas now, they may be useless when they are older. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we tap into as many minds as possible to get the best idea. And that's what we're trying to get as an opportunity as a ministry and as government.
Mr. Chama, as always, a conversation with you is very inspiring. I think people can agree with me just based on this short conversation that we've been able to just have today. As young people, we always say we're proud of you, and as a region, we celebrate your growth and we bet on your capacity to continue positively impacting the lives of young people in Zambia and outside. A special thank you to our listeners. We would love to hear your feedback and thoughts on today's topic and discussion. Leave us a comment on the platform you're using to listen to this podcast or tag us on social media. Remember to share this podcast and follow Southern Defenders on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is the Civic Space Today, a program of the Southern Defenders. I am Mandata Lojwa, your host for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in and see you next time. Together, we defend.